The first book that I bought was The Night House by Jo Nesbø. I have seen this everywhere on Bookstagram, BookTube, and it has been in several book clubs around social media. I don't know too much about this book, but I believe it's about a young boy who is sent to live with his aunt. While there, he discovers a rather creepy telephone booth that seems to have some sinister energy to it. This is one that I definitely want to read soon, and it is The Night House by Jo Nesbø. The next book that I picked up was The Night Swim by Megan Golden. This has been on my TBR for years, and I already own the audiobook of it. This is about a woman named Rachel who is becoming famous for her true crime podcast. She has become a household name. Everybody cannot get enough of the stories that she covers in her podcast. One day, she receives a rather sinister letter that will change everything. I have been really into immersive reading, where you listen to the audiobooks while you read the physical pages on the book. And I saw that this one was one on my TBR that I really want to get to this year. So I couldn't help but pick up a physical copy of The Night Swim by Megan Golden. The next book I am reading with the Black Hearts Book Club this year, and it is The Other People by CJ Tudor. While driving home from work one night, Gabe spies a child's face in the window of the car in front of him. Much to his horror, he realizes it's his own child. Now, 3 years later, he is still on the hunt to find that car. Now, I have read several books by this author. I absolutely loved The Chalk Man by CJ Tudor, and I did not so much like The Burning Girls by CJ Tudor. But I am intrigued about this premise of the book. It's kind of reminding me of No Exit by Taylor Adams, which is one of my favorite thrillers. So I'm really excited to read The Other People by CJ Tudor with the Black Hearts Book Club this year. Keeping with our Black Hearts Book Club picks, I also picked up My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. This is another one we'll be reading as a book club this year, and I'm really excited for it. People have seemed to really love Stephen Graham Jones' writing, and this will be the first one that I've read from this author. I have purposely kept myself in the dark about this one. I want to go into it not knowing anything and just experiencing it, but I am really looking forward to reading My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. The next book that I purchased is This Wretched Valley by Jenny Kiefer. I have seen this everywhere on social media, Bookstagram, BookTube, so I decided to pick it up from the bookstore. I believe this follows our main character, Dylan, as she teams up with a geologist friend and explores an undiscovered rock formation. They are so excited this will put them on the map. However, 7 months later, at that same rock formation, there are 3 bodies, all in different states of decay. And Dylan is still missing. I have heard that this is a fast-paced, creepy, scary book, and I'm really excited to see what all the BookTube hype is about for This Wretched Valley by Jenny Kiefer. The next book that I bought is The Invention of Murder by Judith Flanders. This is a nonfiction book that looks at the Victorian era in their crime detection operations. Now, I love the Victorian era. It's one of my favorite times in history to learn about, and I also really like true crime cases. So I am very excited to read The Invention of Murder by Judith Flanders. The next book that I bought is Slenderman by Kathleen Hale. Now, I'm not sure if this is a nonfiction or a fictionalized account of a true crime case, but I do know that it covers the true crime of several girls in the Midwest who were influenced by this creepypasta character called Slenderman. And this obsession unfortunately led to the murder of 1 or 2 girls. I remember seeing this case in the media, but I cannot recall a lot of specifics about it, so I'm really interested to brush up on it and read Slenderman by Kathleen Hale. The next book that I bought, I actually already read. I couldn't help myself. But it is Goddess of Filth by V. Castro. One summer night, 5 friends decide to hold a drunken seance. It is all fun and games until one of the friends starts acting very strangely. This was so good. V. Castro mixes the perfect combination of a creepy possession, scary story with some really poignant themes and motifs. I just really enjoyed it. It packed such a punch in such a short storyline, and it's a contender for one of my favorites of this year. So I definitely enjoyed Goddess of Filth by V. Castro. Now, if you're a Lady Jane Books fan, you probably know that I really enjoy true crime and serial killer cases. So I bought Ted Bundy, Conversations with a Killer by Steve Machon and Hugh Ainsworth. I had read several books on this subject and I've seen several documentaries, and I decided to pick this one up because it's the transcript of the death row interviews that Ted Bundy gave. I am about halfway through it and I'm honestly having a little bit of a hard time with it. It is very heavy. So I actually put this down and I'll probably pick it back up in a few days. But at some point, I will definitely be completing Ted Bundy, Conversations with a Killer by Steve Machon and Hugh Ainsworth. Now, I actually posted about that book on my Instagram, and a friend of mine gave me a recommendation for another Ted Bundy related book, which I ended up picking up. I bought Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. I believe that this is a fictionalized account of the Chi Omega slaughter, which Ted Bundy was convicted of, and I'm really interested to see how the author interprets the story. I absolutely am in love with this book cover. It is one of the most beautiful book covers I've seen in a long time, and I definitely want to read Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. Wrapping up the Ted Bundy theme of this book haul, I also bought a copy of The Phantom Prince by Elizabeth Kendall and Molly Kendall. Now, I actually already read this book years ago, and I wanted to pick up a physical copy for my bookshelves. Elizabeth Kendall was actually Ted Bundy's long-term girlfriend, and so this is a memoir of their time together. I remember this being a really interesting introspective book, and I do want to reread it at some point. So I definitely had to pick up a physical copy of The Phantom Prince by Elizabeth and Molly Kendall. The next book that I bought was The Chain by Adrian McKinty. This has been on my TBR radar for years. It is a thriller novel in which a young couple unfortunately gets their child abducted. And in order to get their child back, they receive instructions to kidnap someone else's child, creating a chain of events. I have been really intrigued about this story. It's such a strange, scary premise, and I have heard that it is a terrifying thriller novel. So I had to pick up a copy of The Chain by Adrian McKinty. The next book that I purchased is Just the Nicest Couple by Mary Kubica. I have purposely kept myself in the dark about this book. Mary Kubica is fantastic at missing persons thrillers, and I believe that this has a similar premise. I absolutely loved Local Woman Missing by this author, and so I really want to prioritize this one and read it this year. So I could not help myself and picked up a copy of Just the Nicest Couple by Mary Kubica. The next book that I bought was A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers. This is another one I've seen everywhere on Bookstagram, and people say it's pretty disturbing. I have also consciously kept myself in the dark about this one, but I believe it's kind of satirical about, I'm not really sure, but I've heard that it's kind of a satire on like food criticism and things like that. I don't really know, to be honest. I just know that people have found this really gory and kind of gross, but I'm really interested in experiencing it for myself. So I'm quite happy to add A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers to my book collection. And the final book that I purchased in this book haul is Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. This is another one that's been on my TBR for years. I really think even before I started BookTube, I wanted to read this one. And I never quite got around to it, even though I own it in audiobook. So I decided to once again try the immersive reading tactic and purchase a physical copy of this book. I don't know too much about it, but I do believe it's about either a missing girl or several missing girls and the impact that it had on their families and what's happened to them. Are the cases linked? It's a giant mystery. So I do hope to read Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter some point this year. And that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Maybe you bought too many books, Jane. I'm just gonna say, now we're gonna get that thumbnail. This is a mistake waiting to happen. I just know it. I just know it. I know it. You know, I love how I literally just did my TBR video, like my entire TBR physical books, and then I go buy new ones. This is another one that we'll be reading as a book. The next book that I purchased. So many noises. Someone was screaming, they're yelling.